Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 29th meeting of the Rotary Club of Lancaster. I trust that you all are staying safe. I personally have been extremely busy with work and spending what little free time I have at home with the boys. But overall, we're doing well, getting through things the best that we can. At this time, I'd like to turn our meeting over to Pastor Randy Riggs, who will be offering our invocation for today.
Psalm 139 gives us these words: "Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me. Your right hand shall hold me fast." Will you pray with me? Almighty God, we confess to you that we are a people uncomfortable with waiting. We long for quick solutions, easy answers. And this time of pandemic tests our resolve to be patient. And so we ask you, O God, to give us the patience that we need to continue following the guidance that our leaders give us, to keep people safe, to keep ourselves safe. We thank you for those who are in harm's way, caring for the sick, especially hospital workers, physicians, nurses, aides, the people who clean the rooms there, all of whom put themselves in harm's way. O God, grant that safety be upon them. Your hand of reassurance guide them. We thank you for this virtual gathering of our friends who place service above self. And we know that this is a long haul that we are in, O God. So give us the patience to wait, and then when the time is right, the courage to act, to be a beacon of light in darkness, a voice of hope in the midst of despair. We thank you for your promise to be with us in all circumstances. Now guide us as we continue this meeting to hear a word of hope and truth. Amen.
Well, thank you very much, Randy. Moving on to joys and concerns. Fortunately, we did not have any concerns for this week, which is terrific, but we do have some joys. The first is from Stephanie Villar regarding her adoring spouse, Ed Hauk. Stephanie is delighted to announce that Ed received the District 7390's 2019-2020 Outstanding Service Award per District Governor Patty Rooney. Congratulations, Ed. It's very well deserved. Our second joy comes in from Steve Henning. Steve's joy is he is having a good time going through the Lancaster Rotary history book and putting together a website with stories of some of the most fascinating events and projects in the club's history. Since Steve is a relatively recent member to the club, this was especially interesting to him. So thank you, Steve. I've had the opportunity to review some of your work, and you really are doing a wonderful job. So thank you. Our third joy, which came in titled An Extreme Joy, is from Larry Aubrey. Larry's son, Ethan Aubrey, returned safely from a 2-year mission in Southern California for their church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Larry's feeling blessed to have Ethan home and for all the good work that he did on his mission. So welcome home, Ethan. And I personally have a joy. My oldest son, who ironically his name is also Ethan, had his 10th birthday this week. I frankly can't believe he's 10 years old already. But we had a nice time together, opened a few presents. One of the presents I thought that you may find interesting and appreciate. Ethan is a big fan of the television show The Simpsons, so I had this made for him. Moving on to announcements. As many of you are probably aware, we still have a commitment to donate to the Rotary Foundation this year, and we really want to do our best at reaching our goal. At this time, I'm going to turn our meeting over to Foundation Committee Chair Nick Downey for an announcement.
Did you know that supporting the Rotary Foundation helps in the fight to manage the COVID-19 pandemic? The Rotary Foundation has a long history of funding disease prevention and treatment projects that focus on health issues. Success in these areas have helped us to address many health challenges, including the current spread of the coronavirus. Hi, I'm Nick Downey from the club's Foundation Committee. These days, it is difficult for all of us to be together physically, so I'm here today virtually to ask each and every one of you to help our club reach our annual foundation goal. The good news is we're 1/3 of the way to meeting our $30,000 goal, and we have until June 30th to get there. We'd like to thank all those Rotarians who have already made their annual contribution to the foundation, and of course, we hope all our traditional givers will continue to support the foundation between now and the end of the Rotary year. A couple of quick reminders. The Rotarian becomes a Paul Harris Fellow with a total contribution to the foundation of $1,000. With each new $1,000 threshold of support, you will become a multiple Paul Harris Fellow. For new members to the club, one can become a sustaining member to the foundation with as little as a $100 gift in any given year. We encourage all Rotarians to consider this minimum annual gift. Please note, for all new contributions to the foundation, the club will match your donation dollar for dollar up to $500. Therefore, a new member could become a Paul Harris Fellow with as little as a $500 contribution. In the past, we as a committee have been able to provide Rotarians with a foundation checkup table as they would enter the Farm and Home Center for our traditional weekly meeting. Our purpose was to help all Rotarians understand where their giving levels might stand. Our purpose was to identify anyone who might be only a few $100s away from attaining their next Paul Harris level of foundation support. This year, since we will most likely not be together in the near future, the committee stands ready to receive your email requests for you to obtain this information. Just email either Scott Owens or myself, and we'll be happy to let you know what the Rotary records show. Quick email addresses. Mine is Nicholas_Downey. That's NICHOLAS_DOWNEY @ml.com. Scott's email address is Scott, SCOTT.Owens 341 @gmail.com. Yes, these are challenging times. I don't know about you, but now more than ever, I believe we recognize the importance of effective vaccines to help us protect each and every one of us from disease. As scientists work to develop a treatment or a vaccine for the coronavirus, it does feel good to know the Rotary Foundation, through our support, helps fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
That's great, Nick. Thank you. So at this point, we are going to turn our meeting over and get started with today's program, brought to us by Eric Kennel, who is the Executive Director at CompassMark. Eric?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Kennel, and I'm the Executive Director at CompassMark. I'm honored to be part of your Rotary meeting this week virtually and to share a presentation on the topic of addiction prevention. Our community, as you all are aware, is currently in the midst of a pandemic. And while COVID-19 is directly impacting our health, our employment, our social life, and so much more, there's really a second crisis that's present in many of our homes and workplaces and communities, and that's the disease of addiction. Overdose is now the leading cause of death for people under 50. and 1 in 4 families are directly impacted by addiction. So there's a lot of sobering news out there. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing in prevention, specifically related to substance use, problem gambling, and also look at some local data around addiction and share some resources that may be of help or of interest to all of you. Many of you might be familiar with Compass Mark. We're a small nonprofit here in Lancaster, and our mission is to prevent addiction through education, skill building, and community mobilization. We were founded about 55 years ago, I believe, as the Lancaster chapter of the National Council on Alcoholism. And as time went on, our services really grew to include a wide range of intervention and treatment services for all different types of substance use disorders. And for many years, we went by the name of the Council on Drug and Alcohol Abuse, or simply the Council, as many people know. But it's been really in the last 2 decades that Compass Mark has really solidified our space in prevention. And we adopted the name Compass Mark. That name really has significance in terms of our work to guide and empower people on a path towards health, and also connects with our laser focus, the point on our compass, really, so to speak, being around science-based strategies that we know are effective in this work. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment here. But I also did want to just mention that in 2015, we received a presidential grant from this Rotary Club for our youth program, Leaders of Future Generations. And this program is continuing on. We serve over 100 middle school youth each year, providing leadership instruction and hands-on service project, summer camp as well. So I just wanted to mention that and thank you for that generous grant that continues to make an impact even today. So prevention is defined in a lot of different ways. In the midst of COVID-19, we're hearing all kinds of prevention strategies that we can take. I like the prevention definition at the bottom there, which talks about prevention being a proactive process that empowers individuals to meet the challenges of life by reinforcing conditions that promote healthy behaviors and life skills. So prevention is proactive, it's not reactive. And the earlier that it begins, the better. So that's why we focus a lot of our work on children and youth in our community. I also like that it talks about meeting the challenges of life. So we all have stressors, right? It's how we cope that either in healthy or unhealthy ways that really determines our path forward. And so a lot of the work that's being done in prevention is about teaching those skills, helping kids learn how to make healthy decisions, how to manage their emotions, take care of themselves, and deal with all the adversities of life in healthy and productive ways. So there's a story I like to share about prevention and how it helps to think about this idea of going upstream. So there was once a couple of fisher people that would sit along the river each day and they would fish. One day they noticed that someone was coming down the stream struggling for life. So they threw them a life preserver and they pulled him out. Just as they did this, though, another person came down the stream and they pulled her out too. And this continues throughout the day, and the fisher people were getting really exhausted from constantly pulling people out of the river. So they got together and they said, hey, let's go upstream. Let's figure out why so many people are falling in. So when they went upstream, they found that people were being drawn to the edge of this cliff to look at the river, and that's how they were falling in. So again, the fisher people, being the resourceful people that they were, they got together with their community. They built a fence to help keep people from falling in. Occasionally, there would still be some people that would get around that fence and they would fall in, but it was far fewer than before. So very simple story, right? But it helps to illustrate this idea of investing upstream in prevention rather than downstream, and how it's often more efficient and more effective. And it's really the essence of public health. And when we think about the addiction crisis, the opioid crisis that we're talking about in our community right now, many of the solutions are really focusing on mitigating and addressing the current situation, but very few are truly upstream and thinking about what's causing the addiction in the first place. And that's where we are focusing our efforts as an organization. Important to note here that our work in prevention is really a public health approach. We know that around 10% of the population has genetic markers that place us at risk for substance use disorder. But in addition to that, we know that much of our overall health and addiction risk is determined by our social and physical environment. There's a lot of research right now going into adverse childhood experiences and how early trauma can be a significant predictor for addiction. And so that's something that we're working at as an organization. Another thing to mention is just kind of some of the history of prevention. So a long time ago, we used to talk just about giving people information, anti-drug messages, and then it kind of evolved into the early 80s with the DARE program, which involved, many of you probably participated in the DARE or are familiar with it. It was really a lot of scare tactics and telling people, this is what your brain looks like on drugs. And really, there was not a lot of evidence base behind that. It was well intentioned, but we've moved to the other side now, where we're really looking at evidence-based programs, and a lot of the work in prevention now is around building skills, social, emotional skills, not creating an emotional reaction, but giving something concrete that a child or a youth can use, so that when they have that moment of choice, that they're equipped with the skills to be able to make the right decision. So we talk a lot about preparing them, not scaring them, is our efforts and our focus. So why do we do prevention? Prevention, very simply, it's about saving lives, but it's also about the economics, right? So investing in long-term evidence-based prevention returns more than $18 in savings for every dollar spent. So whether you're an employer, a healthcare administrator, a teacher, an elected official, someone who just cares about our community, there really is an impact that is worth considering. These programs that we're putting in place in prevention help children and adults understand and manage their emotions, helps them develop empathy, develop positive relationships, make good decisions, much more, not just having an impact on risk for addiction, but many other areas as well. So the basic principle of prevention: increase protection, lower risk, right? It's kind of like a balance scale. As you add pennies to the balance scale over time, each penny is fairly light. It might seem somewhat inconsequential, but it really is what's needed to finally tip the balance in the right direction. So a person may start life with many risk factors, genetics, for example, that we can't change. But if we provide them with enough protection, enough pennies on the other side of the scale, we can tip it in their favor. And so it's really a good metaphor to think about when in terms of when you feel like you're not helping enough, any positive change that you can encourage in another person's life can contribute to tipping the balance in a positive direction. So what are some risk factors? Here are just a couple examples. So in Pennsylvania, we measure risk and protective factors for youth through something called the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. This is a student survey that's administered every 2 years in school districts around our county. And so the three biggest risk factors there you can see highlighted in red. The first one is simply that youth don't believe that drug use is harmful. That is a big risk factor, and that's part of our education work. Another risk factor is low neighborhood attachment and low commitment to school. So we know that genetics is about 50 to 75% of an individual's risk. But there's a lot of environmental factors like family, school, culture that can be influential as well. And so those are things that are changeable, right? So we work really to address that through developing those protective factors that counteract the risk. Here are some of the protective factors that are most common in our community. It's really, these are really building blocks, right? So in Lancaster and Lebanon counties, the protective factors that we find to be most present are family attachment. Strong family bonds is a great protective factor to help mitigate risk for addiction. Social involvement, that's another really high one. and this belief in the moral order, so basically right or wrong. That's another protective factor that can be valuable in developing good prevention. So I want to just mention kind of where prevention falls on the continuum here. So the work I just spoke about in prevention, as individuals move through this continuum, if prevention unfortunately may not be effective in some situations, and so then we move into the treatment and recovery side. Here in Lancaster County, we have a really robust network of great treatment programs. One of the services we provide is to connect individuals with those programs, help them navigate options. It's very complicated, as you can imagine, due to insurance, availability, all of that. But treatment really can be successful and it's effective. And as individuals move through a treatment program, they enter the recovery space, and it's a lifetime process of recovery. And there are, again, a host of great recovery programs here in our community that are supporting individuals on that journey. One of the efforts here in Lancaster County to bring together the key partners around this continuum is joining forces. And this is led by our County Commissioner, Josh Parsons, and Alice Yoder from Lancaster General Health, and many other organizations that are also comprised of that are also members of joining forces, really focused primarily on the opioid crisis. But there's a lot of other partners that are working to address the goals you see there in front of you. One of the key objectives for joining forces is to collect data and evaluate that data related to substance use in our community. Here you can see some data from the Lancaster Coroner's Office showing the number of overdose deaths here in Lancaster County. And you can see that the last 2 years we've seen some decline since 2017. And we are excited about that. That's moving in the right direction. We hope to see this trend continue. And obviously the increased availability of Narcan and treatment services that are opening up is contributing to that. One of the other factors that's also impacting the decline in overdose deaths is a tightening of opioid prescribing within the medical community. Here you can see Lancaster County, there's been a gradual, consistent decrease in dispensing, and it's being done of opioids, and it's being done in a much more controlled manner now, which is a positive thing, and we want to see continue. Here's some data, again, from joining forces just around the substances that were present in those overdoses. So synthetic opioids like fentanyl have increased dramatically, as has meth and cocaine are also on the rise, unfortunately. And remember that this is data on substances that were present in an overdose. I just want to note that by far the most commonly abused substance with the greatest cost to our society continues to be alcohol. It may not be lethal from an overdose standpoint in the same way, but it still is by far the most abused substance and the cause of a lot of death in the community. On the youth side, we also collect and monitor a lot of data around use. Alcohol for youth as well tends to be the most commonly used substance. The far right bar there under alcohol, you can see represents 2017. So you can see we've been declining in use over the last couple of years, which is a good thing. And we are also in Lancaster below the state average in terms of high school seniors that use alcohol. Marijuana is the second most used substance. Historically, it was going down, although we're really interested to see here in 2019 with the results that come out from the 2019 survey, how the expansion of medical marijuana may impact accessibility and use for youth. And tobacco also continues to go down. So against this backdrop of the data that we've talked about regarding prevention and the current COVID-19 situation, there are several implications that I want to pull out. So right now we're in a time of social isolation. During this social distancing, many of the opportunities for social engagement, school involvement, neighborhood activities have been eliminated. And so we're really concerned about that. We know for a fact that increased isolation causes greater risk for substance use, whether you're a youth or an adult. And so that's a concern in the current environment that we're in. Another concern is alcohol use. Recently, the state liquor stores have closed, and that has led to a number of individuals with alcohol dependency going through very serious and potentially fatal withdrawals. So it's important now more than ever that these withdrawals are done through a closely monitored detox program and followed up with additional treatment. In some parts of the country, we've seen alcohol sales increasing by more than 50% since COVID-19, which is a big concern for individuals with dependency or substance use disorders. For many of us, my family included, the shelter in place has brought us to a place of increased anxiety, the stress, the depression. And so it's important that we pause and we consider, how are we and our families and our communities coping? Are we doing healthy coping strategies or potentially unhealthy ones? Am I in control of the way I'm responding, or do I need to reach out for support? Now more than ever, as we distance ourselves, we still need that social and emotional support and people that can help us cope in positive ways. Also concerns around the impacts of COVID-19 on the respiratory system. Obviously it impacts lungs, and there's some early research that's coming out to show that individuals using tobacco, marijuana, and vaping are likely to have an increased vulnerability to the virus and potentially more severe symptoms. And finally, just to point out here a word about trauma. So individuals in our community are facing not just health threats right now, but job loss, food insecurity, gaps in education, increases in depression, domestic violence, all of those things. And all of that is trauma, and all of that can increase our collective risk for addiction. So we're concerned about that, and I think that's one of the things that as we move forward through this, we want to make sure that we're providing good prevention and resource in our community to deal with that trauma. So a little bit of an overview here about some of the services we provide at Compass Mark. Our Addiction Resource Center is available. We're still taking phone calls at that phone number there you see. We also have our website up to date. Reach out for help or give out this phone number if you know people that are really struggling with the current situation that they're in. Treatment services in our county are open, and many support groups are transitioning to virtual meetings, so those are accessible. Last year, our Addiction Resource Center supported over 12,000 people in Lancaster County through referrals, speaking engagements, and a lot of other activities that we do to educate people. Another bucket of programs that we have at Compass Mark is our school-based prevention. Obviously, those have taken a hit here in the current environment, but we're doing a lot more online. Seen some pretty neat ways to doing videos that the kids are engaging, and that's exciting to see. We know that the earlier we provide prevention, the greater their effectiveness. So our programs really operate grades K through 12, and we partner with the majority of the school districts here in Lancaster County and deliver these evidence-based programs. In terms of community prevention, we also do a couple programs for very specific risk populations. One of them is Student Skills for Life, and that's for youth ages 13 to 25 who are already experimenting with drugs and alcohol. And the second is our Family Services Advocate Program, and that provides direct case management services to children whose parents are incarcerated at Lancaster County Prison. And then we provide a lot of different training programs for employers, teachers, educators, community service providers. One example is the trainings we provide through the Student Assistance Program in the schools, which is a referral and support program that operates in every district in the county. We also partner to do community mobilization and technical assistance work. This is about providing support to different coalition groups around the county. Some of them are United Way Collective Impact Partner agencies, and we really help them identify what are the best practices in prevention and giving them resources and ideas for how they can respond to addiction issues present in their community. So in closing here, I just want to highlight that while organizations like Compass Mark are here in the community. We're 100% dedicated to preventing addiction. There really are opportunities for all of us to support this work. Prevention is most effective when it's delivered over time in a variety of settings. So at home, parents and caregivers, they can and they should communicate clear standards about alcohol and drug use. Having the conversation with your kids is really important, because if you don't, there are many other influences and messages that they will receive. And we have information on our website about how to have those kinds of conversations that are age appropriate. Within the schools, ask your school district what programs they're using. Encourage them to invest the time and resources in evidence-based programs, such as those offered by CompassMark and other providers in the community. In the community, providing healthy activities for youth and adults to build connection and create positive role models. Mentoring programs are really important. And in the workplace. Thinking about how can you do activities in the workplace that are alcohol and gambling free, that are also fun. There are some activities that exist like that, right? There are also opportunities to invite someone to come in and do a short presentation with your team about addiction resources. And every employer is impacted by addiction in some way, whether it's with your employees or a family member. And so it's really important that employees are supported in reaching out for help. Programs such as the Employee Assistance Program, which many workplaces offer. And then in the faith community, there's opportunities to do presentations, work with youth groups and others. A lot of churches are starting to do recovery support teams, which is a great resource for people in the community. So I'll leave with a motto here that we like to highlight here at CompassMark. Prevention works, treatment is effective, and people do recover. There's unfortunately a lot of stigma around addiction, and it's really easy to get discouraged by the impact that opioids and other substances are having on our community. More than 20 million people in our country have a substance use disorder, but there are also millions that have recovered and millions more who are going down a different road because of prevention. So all that to say, our message at CompassMark is always one of hope. There's no shame in reaching out for help. And we really do believe that with our community, we can guide people on a path toward healthy, fulfilling lives that are free from addiction. So I want to leave you here with my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like more information about some of these programs that are available in the community, or if you're looking for resources related to prevention, substance use, gambling addiction. We are here to help. There is no shame and no stigma in reaching out for help. And so thank you for your time. Thanks for listening, and please do stay well. Goodbye.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. What a wonderful presentation. Very interesting, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to speak with our club. I think it's fair to say that our society has been so consumed with our current pandemic that many of us may overlook some of the other issues that we are facing. So thank you for the reminder. I've continued to ask Rotarians to video record themselves stating what they were grateful for during these difficult times, and to email me those videos. Once again, we are still accepting videos, and I have received another one this week that I'd like to share with you. So in closing, for those of you who are not involved in essential businesses and who have been completely isolated at home, please remember that you have friends here at Rotary, and you can reach out to any of us at any time. Just remember, each day in isolation is one day closer to getting back to normal. Until we meet again, take care.
P. Gates, Lancaster Rotarians. I'm coming to you from the top of Black Log Mountain in Huntington County, USA. Behind me is Shade Mountain, and in the valley below is Black Log Valley. On this side, The mountain in the background, I understand it's not a great picture, is Jack's Mountain. The valley in between us is Germany Valley, named because the settlers here thought it looked so much like Germany. Anyway, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all staying healthy, and I'm anxious to see you all soon.